Hiya Toon Fanatics, and welcome to Toon Corner. And today we'll be talking about some Toontastic facts about Walt Disney. Let's get started. A lot of Walt's childhood memories took place in a small town of Marceline, Missouri. While he was there, he actually earned a quarter for drawing a horse named Rupert. He drew on the side of the family farm, and he would draw underneath a tree that would be famously known as the Dreaming Tree. Marceline became an inspiration for some of Walt's films as well as Main Street USA at Disneyland. During World War I, Walt had to lie about his age so he could join the Red Cross and become an ambulance driver. In his spare time, he would actually sit at his desk and draw cartoons. He even drew a cartoon on the side of his truck. Before Walt moved to California and formed the studio that we're all familiar with today, he actually owned a studio in Kansas City, Missouri called the Laugh-O-Gram Studio. At that studio, Walt and his animators would make cartoons for the Newman Theater. Unfortunately, the studio had a very short lifespan, and it had to be filed for bankruptcy because Walt didn't really have enough money during that time. Nowadays, a special organization called the Thank You Walt Disney Foundation is working really hard to raise money so they can be able to rebuild and remodel the studio and make it into a place where people can see what Walt did while living in Kansas City, Missouri. The Laugh-O-Gram Studio has been known as the home of Mickey Mouse. The story behind that is that Walt would be sitting in his office, sometimes working late at night, and he would have a mouse as a pet. So the mouse would just crawl around on his desk, and Walt would feed it crumbs from time to time. Not only has Walt created the personality for Mickey Mouse, he was also the voice of Mickey Mouse. He started voicing Mickey in 1928 with a cartoon called Steamboat Willie. And he has continued voicing Mickey up until 1947 with the live-action animated movie Fun and Fancy Free. By that time, Walt was unable to do that Valtesso voice that he would normally give Mickey. For the Silly Symphony's cartoon Flowers and Trees, at first, when it was first being made, it was in black and white, and it was halfway finished. But when Walt found out about the Technicolor process, he basically told his editors to start all over again. So they basically started from scratch, added color, and so Flowers and Trees became the first Silly Symphony's cartoon in color, and it won an award. During the late 30s and early 40s, Walt would do some research and figure out what stories he would like to turn into animated movies, like Peter Pan, for example. So Walt and his team of animators would come up with storyboards and concept art, but when America first entered World War II, after the attack of Pearl Harbor, all of that stuff had to be shelved, and they would never see the light of day until the 1950s when Walt was financially stable after the war. During the late 40s and early 50s, Walt kind of tinkered with the idea of having the happiest place on earth where both kids and adults can have fun. He kind of thought about it more whenever he was watching his daughters go on the merry-go-round. Walt would normally take his daughters to places like parks and zoos whenever he's not working. And so that's basically how some of the ideas started planting into his mind as far as making Disneyland goes. It actually evolved from just a small park outside of his studio to the big giant amusement park that we're all familiar with today in Anaheim, California. Walt was very hands-on when it came to Disneyland. He made WED Enterprises, which is where a lot of the animatronics were being made. He supervised the construction. He knew where the trash cans should be placed just based off of how many steps it takes him to eat a hot dog from one place to another And whenever there was a plumber strike during that time, Walt had to choose between bathrooms and water fountains. And he wisely chose bathrooms because people can buy Coca-Cola and Pepsi, but they can't pee in the streets. When Disneyland first opened in 1955, it started off pretty good, but then hiccups started appearing here and there. It was the hottest day of the year. People had counterfeit tickets, rides were being broken down, concessions were running low on food and drinks, and some of the cement didn't really dry, so a woman's high shoe actually got stuck. People would know that day as Black Sunday, but despite that, Walt and his team worked really hard to fix those mistakes, and ever since then, over thousands and thousands of people would visit Disneyland every year. One of the things that Walt mentioned about Disneyland is that he said that it would be a never-ending project. As long as there is imagination in the world, Disneyland would never be finished. Walt has been involved with the World's Fair in 1964 and 1965. He would bring different attractions down there, like the animatronic Abe Lincoln and It's a Small World After All, for example. From the early to mid-60s, Walt has been dreaming up the idea of Disney World in Orlando, Florida, but the biggest thing he focused on the most was Epcot, also known as the Experimental Prototype City of Tomorrow, which is a place where people can actually live and work, and they would have all this advanced technology that would make living, working, and traveling a lot easier. Unfortunately, Walt Disney passed away on December 15th, 1966, at the age of 65 due to lung cancer. And the question of the day is, what Toontastic fact about Walt Disney were you surprised about? Just let me know in the comment section down below. Feel free to leave any requests. And I'll see you next time in Toon Corner.